morning, everyone. Welcome to the panel on the Divine Feminine. We have little biographies are posted on the wall, and that will serve as introduction for our panel. The panel members are prepared to each give a definition of what is the Divine Feminine. I thought that since the concept of the Divine Feminine is not really well integrated into the fellowship, that it would be wise to start with what is the Divine Feminine from the point of view of each of these panel members. Following that definition, we will rotate through the panel with each person giving an answer to how do I experience the Divine Feminine in my life, or what aspect of the Divine Feminine resonates the most for me. So each panel member will have 5 minutes to speak to that. After that, we'll open it to questions and dialogue and end the hour with each member of the panel having an opportunity to give a minute of wrap-up if each person wants to do that, have that opportunity. And we will end with our song, which Sarah began the gathering with. So, I want to thank you all for your willingness to participate and enter into this sacred space. Sharon will give her definition. We each have a minute. Well, actually, we each have a sentence.
Oh, you're right. Well, I'm happy to have.
Why don't we do that?
Do I have to say our names before we do our sentence? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, say your name before we do your sentence definition.
Sharon Solomon, and this is according to the teachings of Paul Solomon. There is only one lesson, one law, and that is the law of one. You spend lifetimes, eons, learning it. The law of one states, I am all things, in all things. I am God. There is a masculine and a feminine aspect to that law, and we must learn to experience and express both.
Carol?
Since I didn't realize we were going to do an opening sentence, I'll just...
We want to know. Just Carol's easy. Your last name too.
You're on. Yeah, you're on. Carol Bush. Okay. What is the feminine? The feminine to me is the woman who... Can you hear?
Yes.
Just a little more volume. The woman who is able to come into her true, authentic self. And when she does that, she carries a certain presence, a certain aura. And it's very needed today.
Thank you.
And Robert, your definition?
Your name first.
I'm Robert Virginie. And my definition of the Divine Feminine is it's an emphasis on feeling, taking time, not being rushed by a schedule or wanting to do something, just to be with the person you're with. Take time to enjoy the moment, and things like that. It's instead of a busy world where you're trying to survive, I guess. Don't worry about surviving. Enjoy it.
And Sally?
Reverend Sally Perry, Swami Satchidanand, since 2008. I will ask you to journey with me back to the very beginning of the Divine Feminine, when there was no other. In other words, oneness.
And Marilyn?
I'm Marilyn Butler, and my perspective is the Divine Feminine is the state of being in which grace, joy, curiosity, well-being, and creativity flourish in a sacred dance of passion.
Thank you all. And Sharon, you have your 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you still have a minute left, okay?
I'm timed.
Your time. She's prepared. Thank you.
And these are according to the teachings of Paul Solomon again. Paul Solomon said the gods are one. Throughout time, warlike nations gave emphasis to the male god, and thus in our culture we have inherited a very masculine god. We have seldom seen the female aspect of God in our culture until our generation, but it is there. What is called the Great Sea, Mara, the bitter one, that the Egyptians call Isis, corresponds in our scripture to the great central stillness, quietness, receptivity before time was. The movement of the Spirit on the waters and on the earth is Aphrodite, the great awakener. This female aspect of God is best described in our scriptures as the Holy Spirit. This spirit of holiness of Judaism is called the Shekinah. The male principle, the active principle, the doer, the achiever, is the giver of life. But life does not come forth until it is beckoned, called, stirred, empowered by the great awakener, the goddess of love, Aphrodite. Man, the masculine principle in a man or a woman, cannot forever be potent, and thus from across the dark waters, Persephone calls man to rest. Man is welcomed into the dark bosom and given nourishment there for a time in the arms of Persephone. He rests in the unmanifest after the dark night of the soul until comes the time for his new birth. Our Lady of Sorrows, the ruler of death, Persephone, is symbolized by Mary at the cross. And then it is Aphrodite who calls him back to life. In our scriptures, Aphrodite is also symbolized by Mary Magdalene, Rahab the harlot, and by Eve. What is the role of the great goddess in our spiritual growth? In meditation, a man or woman enters a state of emptiness as if unborn, turning back within the self to a place of stillness, darkness, beyond the material plane, back into the unmanifest. Here he will find Luna or Elavana, the ruler of tides and of meditation, the giver of visions. Entering into the stillness, we can be infused with knowledge or light. We need Aphrodite to stir our consciousness. Diane Fortune said, all the gods are one god and all the goddesses are one goddess. All these things are one thing. The gods are one, Paul Solomon said. We find differences and separation in the worship of the one God and the many gods. We see differences in the worship of the gods and the goddesses. But yet, when you look at all the teachings from above the material, bicameral brain mind, the names may be different, but the teachings are the same. We need to learn to reach across cultural borders and find the teachings of the ancients among other people without saying this is better and this is worse, or having to choose. We need to study other cultures and other sacred scriptures to find the sameness of them all. There is only one lesson, one law, and that is the law of one. We spend lifetimes, eons, learning it. The law of one states, I am all things in all things. I am God. There is a masculine and feminine aspect to that law, and we must learn to experience and express both. It is important in our culture that we learn the importance of the divine feminine to also keep the sacredness of the divine masculine, for these are one as well. When I awaken to find myself, to know who I am, what I am, then there is no separation, for whatever aspect I find of God is a reflection of myself. And then I cannot experience either separatism or selfishness, because if I know that you are me, then I do not wish to withhold anything from you. For any blessing that you have is my blessing also if I am you. Thus selfishness is ended, and selfishness and separation is the only sin that ever existed, that ever has or ever will. God is a mother. In the beginning, the great sea that gave birth was the female principle of God, and every woman is her priestess. If I want to know God, Goddess, we must see them in one another. We must see her in one another. He who understands the tides in the life of a woman, any woman, can understand the movement of the tides on Mother Earth and the tides of the universe. And then we will know we are one. Whether you are a man or a woman, your heart is a womb to incubate the child of God. For you are Mary, the bride of God, and God is in love with you. And you will give birth to a child, a son, the active principle, who will do God's work in the world through you. May God and Goddess bless you always.
Thank you. And Carol?
I want to share with you, and I'm really interested to hear from you about how it's been for you to age, to become more of what they call the crone. The crone is a very old term, way back when it was, let's say, fashionable. It was another word for the crown. And I love the practice now. If you're over 60, maybe you've had a birthday where your friends celebrated you and gave you a crown, like a crown of flowers or something. I like that as a way to recognize, because in so many ways, growing older, women were just disregarded. Even in myself, going through a world of, let's say, starting a whole movement with this new therapy, with music, and doing it all over the world. Coming into this has been really interesting, because even men that have this much experience in it get paid more. So how do you deal with the world when you come into your own? When you feel your wisdom, when you're in touch with, hopefully, your intuition, and you have to navigate on what feels right. And how do you know what feels right? When you go through different passages of your life, I found that when you're in the heart of something that you experience that is significant, one of the ways to extract from it, what's the wisdom? What's the lesson that I'm learning here? And when do you find that out? Usually after. When you learn to be with what has happened to you. And I'm really big on focusing to the heart and talking to the heart. So being quiet, being reflective, what have I learned? And it's good to notice that, because I think the universe likes us to notice those things and to be grateful. Growing old as a crone, I was looking up some of the stuff on it, and I found this one funny thing I wanted to tell you, and it's very true. That even though the crone has all of these abilities, be careful. Because in the deepest hems of her skirts, she carries the Baba Yaga. And when you get firm and clear in following your truth in who you are, don't mess with that crone. She's strong. Okay. So it's navigating life at a whole different level when you get here. And I hope that in all the passages and lessons of life that you will live through to get to cronehood, you learn those lessons. So bless you and thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Robert?
Oh, my journey began exploring the divine feminine by being impressed with different females, like Carol, and people who are quite different. When I was growing up,
Hey, Robert, switch to the other mic. That one's not loud enough. Okay. All right.
Okay. Of course, when I was growing up in Detroit in the 50s and so on, the male-female roles were quite defined. Yeah. So it wasn't until I got to Virginia Beach where I met a different kind of female, more open and different role. I got intrigued with that. And so what I wanted to do was get out of the mindset that we're kind of born with and start breaking down thought forms or conventions or so on, to find out who is that in me. And the first way was to honor the intuition. And I noticed the women, they engage more with each other, and the men kind of stay to their projects and so on like that when they get together and talk. And the women were much more interesting to be with than the men. To me, anyway.
Don't you love hearing that?
So I like the spontaneity. Turn to a woman first. But then here's the interesting thing, is I began to focus on the divine feminine in me and follow my intuition and be more expressive and not so isolated by myself as my male monk role, I guess, from monks and other lives. Kind of withdraw into yourself and try to be more outgoing, more expressive. And that was breaking down some of the ideas that I had about what I was supposed to be and so on. and enjoying it. And as I continued in this process, mostly secretly by myself, nobody, I'm not telling people I'm doing this. So I just try to live it. And I had this experience of grow in me that there was a woman inside me. And it didn't have anything to do with sex, because it wasn't physical. But there was a definite woman that, I don't know how even to say it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was, and then I got to where this woman was more clear, and I was more self-assured about her. And then it like the integration happened with my male and female side, and there was a wholeness and a comfortability, comfort to it, which it like sealed the process. This is good. And this is, I think, what in a one-sided society where the male is the dominant archetype, it would be good to have more males have this experience of integrating the divine woman, bringing her so she was in her fullness, not just a concept, but she was a companion, someone I could relate with and seek her advice, which is, your intuition, your feelings, not necessarily a plan of action that I laid out, but you kind of find your way through it. And that was very interesting, and it still is. And here I am sitting here with a panel of very strong women. Me. I'm thinking, how did I get here? But it's all part of the process. And you go when you're in the process, you have to go where it takes you. So that's my.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Thank you.
And Sally?
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Again, we'll start the journey above with the divine feminine without the other, which meant she came from the Godhood, the throne of God, the oneness. As she came down with points of light placed in everybody, our female side. She taught us in dream time. She taught us in many, many avenues till we started waking up. And we started realizing that our mindsets were not serving us. We started realizing our emotions were out of balance. We went to churches, we went to healing groups to learn this. We went to medicine wheels and vision quests and temples, and took peyote and took other drugs. But all of a sudden, we had an experience that gave us some wisdom, because you have to experience. Teachers and books give you knowledge, but you have to have the experience to get the wisdom. And what happens is, as you experience that you can eliminate your mindsets and your imbalanced emotions, what happens is you start coming from involution to evolution. And that's done through meditation, prayer, listening, with teachers. Guru means teacher. I've always felt I needed a teacher. I've been blessed to have very good ones. And thank you, Paul Solomon, for the ordination and the acceptance. And what happens is that divine is waiting for us in the Buddhic plane, and the Buddhic plane is about wisdom. So once you do the work, Lord knows I did so many dances, 12 of them, till I was hit by the light and taken to India. I did so many forgives and releases for 4 years till I started having past life memories. So I experienced the Buddhic plane. I experienced the divine. I understood her, and believe me, when Swami wanted to, for 7 years, try to get me to take the road, I said, I've had a wonderful life, Swami, I'm not a saint. He said, Sally G, you have the heart of a saint. And that I knew was true. So what I would say, and don't forget we have our male side, it expresses. The female holds the energy. So I would ask myself, how much am I holding? How much am I expressing? Oh my gosh, my male side was way out of balance. She was out in the world, starting businesses. And all of a sudden went straight up, became a millionaire, went straight down, figured out what the heck was going on. All here in Virginia Beach. So I'm back to my circle, back to my home church. Started with Unity, but I remember Richard Fitz said, you really need to go to the fellowship. Met Alex Orvieto, Joseph Rael, and wow, ended up here. Yeah. And yes, at first, when I was told to see the divine, I still had judgment, maybe 15 years ago. And then I learned not to judge. They are what they are. No force anymore. No force, just flowing. We actualize as Maslow's theory speaks of. But once we actualize, then we can really start the realization. Because we don't need the ego to control us. And the ego becomes the supreme. And it gives it up for the intellect. And remember, the divine feminine is higher than the intellect.
Thank you, Sally. And Marilyn.
Yeah. So the question was talking about how the divine feminine affect us, and I've done artwork and workshops about the divine feminine for 30 years, and I could talk a long time about that, but I'm also managing editor of Op-Ed News, which is kind of like a baby HuffPo, and it's respectable. We have 40 million hits a month, and I've had 1.5 million views of my work, so it's really, there's always respect. We got something going on. But I thought, so for me, the idea of the divine feminine has been intertwined with current events a lot lately. And that's a place where everyone here can make a difference and bring these beautiful, lofty concepts into everyday life. So you may have noticed we have a country here that seems to be wildly out of balance, and as far as the masculine and the feminine. And part of that is because the pendulum is swinging. We've had 5,000 years of patriarchy, which is out of balance. And by the way, patriarchy is much more damaging to men than it is to women. So, because what does patriarchy do to women? Well, it takes away choice, it takes away your opportunity to vote, it takes away your opportunity to have control of your own body, it takes away your ability to raise your children the way you want. It takes away your property, it takes away your wealth, it takes away all that. But to men, it takes away their soul. So this is why we should all work together to move beyond patriarchy. And the good news is patriarchy is dying. One of my favorite memes over the last few weeks on Facebook has been this beautiful little Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. And Winnie the Pooh is saying, "What day is it today?" And Piglet says, "Today is the day we burn the patriarchy to the ground." And Winnie the Pooh says, "My favorite day." So what we are hearing now, if you have ears to ear, and it's pretty loud, ears to hearing, it's pretty loud, so most everybody should be hearing it, is the desperate screams of terrified white men who are used to wielding unearned power. A lot of that's coming from a little ways north of us, in Washington, D.C. They feel the power slipping away. This pendulum of moving from out of control patriarchy is moving back to the divine feminine. So people who have been given unearned power are feeling it slipping away. They have no idea how to get power back because they've never had to do it. Women, people of color, if they have power, they've earned every bit of it. And they know how to get it back. But poor, rich white men who have been given, you know, they have $1 million penis when they're born. Because the average man makes $1 million a year more than the average woman in this country. And you just get that. Golden, you know. So who are the wounded ones? The wounded ones are men who have wounded themselves mortally by patriarchy. So what are we going to do? Well, and the power is from... We'll leave that to later. The power is from European civilization. That's right. When people came here, the Native Americans didn't have that kind of hierarchy. It wasn't patriarchal. The women decided ultimately what happened, if there was war or not, or whatever. When the Euro-Americans came to meet with the Native Americans said, "We can't meet with you. We can't negotiate anything. Where are your women? You can't make a decision without them." Okay. Dalai Lama, I thought you were going to tell me in a minute. Dalai Lama said the world will be saved by the Western woman. And how do we do that? The focus is in our country. We have liberty enlightening the world. We have the goddess of freedom, which is on top of our Capitol building. We have the goddess of knowledge and women, whose statues over the House of Representatives. We have 3 goddesses of justice on our Supreme Court. We had the Lady Liberty, who was on every piece of our currency until the 20th century, giving us abundance in this country, until the moment when she was removed and patriarchy took over our currency. So the good news is that Maharishi said that it only takes 1% of the population to shift things around. And the good news is we had 3 million women marching in the Women's March with our pussy hats. And that is 1% of America. We have 300 million people here. And so our 1% is moving to change this. We're reframing, we're shifting the view of feminine qualities of nurturing, caring, and serving as strength instead of weakness, which is good for men because men have grown up damaged in this country thinking that those qualities are weak. The new man is the one who's, and this happened to me. I had a gentleman friend stay for a couple of days because he was in town on my sofa. But after a couple of days, I came home from work and he said, "Where's the vacuum?" Now there's a guy who is integrated with his feminine. They are the ones who took the trash out before you even noticed it needed to go out. Every time. They're the ones that you catch reading your books about the divine feminine, and they are taking notes. So I end with this. There is a reason why no man was ever shot while doing the dishes. And that's because there's the balance there.
Thank you, Marilyn. Now we have an opportunity for any of you who have questions to ask whoever you want to on the panel, whatever question you have, or a comment. We can enter into a dialogue.
And
Yes.
and Cynthia, repeat the question.
Sure.
Well, I don't have a question, because I've been waiting to comment. Because I'm asking the
That's fine. Go ahead and comment.
Kristen, go down to the mic.
You want me to speak in that thing?
Yes.
I'm not loud enough?
No,
I understand.
Take your power, girlfriend.
it won't,
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
it won't go that far.
I'll go up front.
Come be on the video with us, sweetheart. We love you.
I'd say of all the people in this room, Carol Bush probably knows me the most. Because I went to her when I came to Virginia Beach to kind of work out my shit.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I've really worked it out. I'm clean and smell good.
And you look beautiful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I used to say, when a man can change a diaper and a woman can change a tire, we have arrived. I changed from being a special education teacher with emotionally disturbed children to being a psychotherapist. I worked with little kids that needed help when they were not touched appropriately. Did that for many years. Switched over the last 5 years, and adults and children, but mostly adults. It's very different working with adults than children. But I got to do a lot of kid things with adults that they don't know that they were kid things, that it works. But one of the things I do is teach an anger management class for parolees. And the class is always, most usually all men, and most usually all black or Hispanic. Occasionally a woman will be in there, but not very often. So every class, we always talk about the John Wayne mentality. That's an easy way for me to talk about masculine and feminine, and they get it. And when I talk to them, part of my talk is about balance in knowing how to communicate. Assertiveness means you're not aggressive or passive. You're just assertive. You're talking about how you feel to somebody. And it's not always easy. And I tell my people in my classes, I said, I'm still working on it. There's no perfection sitting here. I said, that anger's not bad, it's just a feeling, but how you channel it, you know? And aging sucks. I actually, in flying here from Kansas City, would have thought about that word crone. Where it just popped in my head. My goodness.
Yeah, the same line.
I didn't even know I was on the wavelength. But all of us always will feel effects of aging. It's a huge change. It's a transformation. It's not always fun. But all transformations are not always fun. Being young and not knowing your path can be very disturbing. It's a big learning experience. So you learn, no matter what your stage in life, you're learning. So it's a learning for those of us that are aging. I got to apply for Medicare August 5th. Made the appointment with the lady. I can't hardly believe it. Thank you. On a personal note, I think that there is hope when you talk about the new way. My mother was very much a feminist before that word ever came about, and so I got the advantages of that. She was a go-getter, and she raised my brother well. He had 2 boys, and they are the ones that changed diapers.
Yeah.
and sweep and do dishes and are kind and gentle. But they also have their male sides too, and it's wonderful to see. I see that change, and I applaud that change. And so, on the aging note, encouragement. We'll get through it. We'll do it. It won't always feel good. Our bodies tell us a lot of things they didn't used to talk the way it didn't used to. Yeah. And so I got this book on aging from Unity. It was really neat. So I'd encourage you to contact and see if you can get that book, because it's very helpful. It helps you have a good sense of how to manage your own aging.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Good. You're very brave.
I'm tempted to say, well, here's from the other side of the aisle, but that's not where I come from. At the birth of my second daughter, I recognized a few things. That I couldn't do that. That I was not just physiologically capable to do that, but I wasn't equipped at a few levels to do that. And once on the physical level, I woke up in the middle of the night with a leg cramp. Did anyone here ever have a leg cramp? You know, it's like the Charlie horse that gets you up and put that something in my mouth. So I asked my wife, "Oh, you've had those. How does that compare to birth?" And yet, well, she just smiled, and that was enough of an answer for me to recognize that. So the question then is, for me, is why would anybody do? What would the universe do it? It's clear. There's only one answer. There's always only ever one answer. It's love. So the question it's a long-winded wind-up to a real question. The question is, yes, being somewhat of a light skin color without the orangeness, but how can we heal that? Because clearly, anger is clearly not going to be the answer. So healing is the only answer. So in seeing that there is a profound amount of unconsciousness that's coming up to be healed, I'd love to hear from one or more. Is like, how can people and men rise, because they're unconscious. They're just deeply, deeply asleep, as Adam was.
Right. And unconscious is not a sin. I can answer that. Right? Go ahead. I'll let you talk to you. You go first. On the fence.
Okay, let me answer that from more of a psychological perspective. Carl Jung told us that in this journey that we're all in, male, female, that one of the major steps along the way is the recognition of our counterpart. So when you recognize that female in yourself, that is a very big step in this process. And so where do we find it? And I have some advice. Those of you that have not yet really open to your unconscious a little more, get into your dreams. The counterpart, the anima or animus, that is balancing you is appearing in your dreams a lot lately, because we're coming more into balance. So pay attention when you're dreaming about women, when I'm dreaming about men. Well, it depends on how I'm dreaming about them. But that's that balancing thing that's going on in us. And that's our road to finding our true self. We have to go in these places to find it.
I love that. That's where you went first. Because part of the way to do that is what we do in our everyday reality, as above, so below, or in the non-ordinary reality is what's in the ordinary reality. So I think it's important to look very carefully and closely at every detail of our reality and see what's the balance of masculine and feminine. It's imbalance, is what it is. And we can see that without going outside of this room. So if you just, and I've talked about this before, and you can see me on video unless they slashed me off the website here. But you can look at the Great Invocation and see how many masculine pronouns there are versus how many feminine. You can look at, every Sunday, you can look in our brochure and see how many masculine pronouns there are versus feminine. The truth is that is what makes you go unconscious. And people will swear to you that they're living a balanced male-female experience. And that's not possible. You know, when you're a fish, you don't know you're in water. So it's important, you know, it's important to be conscious of your words. Every word we speak is a prayer. So how many times do we refer to God as masculine and feminine? Some people say, well, I use a balanced term. I say creator. Creator is a masculine term. Creatrix is the feminine term. So this is just an example of how insidious this is. I mean, you know, and dare I say it, fellowship.
Oh.
There is the pattern of patriarchy right there. So the thing is, the question is, do you want to subscribe to the pattern of patriarchy? It doesn't mean, you know, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to, and the interesting thing is you don't have to change the things that seem unchangeable. You just have to find a way to provide the balance of the other side. And there's cool ways to do that.
I have to just feedback one thing about fellowship. I'm taking out my dagger, Baba Yaga thing. Is fellowship. I looked it up one time when I heard, because it hit me. It's like the ordinary usage of that term is guy's fellow. But if you look it up, it's from a Scandinavian Nordic word, and it really has to do with that when you were going to, your cattle was community cattle, and you entered into relationship, yours was part of a whole, and everybody that was part of that whole shared in the benefits of that. It's a way not masculine thing that has been, it's like the word ISIS. I get very upset about using ISIS in terms of ISIL. I get very upset that fellowship is misunderstood. Please look it up about its true meaning, because it's about sharing in the community and everyone has ownership of it. It's not a masculine term at all.
Okay, I'm just saying
Hey,
that.
Marilyn, would you just summarize what he's, would you, Marilyn, would you just,
Okay.
Marilyn, would you just summarize what he said so it gets recorded? Just a quick summary.
Okay, yes. So he said that the word fellowship comes from Scandinavian, and in the deeper history, it's not masculine. I would say that in people's consciousness today it is, and that contributes.
And Sally had something?
So that's the judgment, if I may chime in. And I'm judging too, so I can't do that because it connects to it. So what I do connect to is your question about anger, because it was the karmic reason I came in. I was the only girl in the 6th grade ever in the school that took boxing. Knocked the guy out, went out in the woods, drew me a circle, and fell asleep all day. They couldn't find me because I saw the fear in his eyes that I had. And it was a big teaching. How I rid myself, I was 44 when I rid myself of anger. I did it with dancing, the ceremonial dances, and focusing on it. I did it going to Unity first, learning to be a teacher. And as a teacher, I learned that I had to write forgives and releases for a year. To this day, that's my main teaching. I wrote for 4 years on over 400 people. I started having past lives. I've had 35 and met people that have killed me in other lives. So if you want to open your heart, you've got to forgive. And that's the key that will release your anger, because the thought is 4 volts of electricity. We taught this, Jerry, in business in the 70s. What you speak is 10 times stronger. What you write is 50 times stronger. Breath, matter, and movement is the way to change any emotion. Thank you.
Thank you. Rainbow?
Yes.
Can I say something?
Oh, okay.
I have a different experience of life with the masculine and feminine than most of you because my father did help around the house. And my brother was a partner with his wife in taking care of them. And I see my nieces and nephews, their husbands changing diapers and washing dishes, cooking the meals, and just doing anything there was to do. And also, you saw my husband, Paul Solomon, in the very masculine role of authority and people taking care of him. But he would do anything that was needed to do. He would wash the dishes, or he would make the beds, or do the ironing when it was needed to do. So those things that you're talking about, this equality and working together of masculine and feminine, it does exist in the world. And we have to be grateful for that and foster it more. But it's not a universal thing of all men or all women.
I just want to add,
Thank you.
it's a Jewish and Hindu thing.
Yeah, okay.
And Hindus have no problem with it.
Yeah, Jewish and Hindu thing. But
Rainbow had something.
When I was visiting Mom when she lived in California, I became aware of a group called Men Against Violence Against Women.
oh,
And I think that the answer is that men will listen to men. So men who know their inner self, we need you to stand up for us and to stand up for yourselves and to say to other men, let's go inside. Let's listen to our intuition. Let's do art. Let's listen to our dreams. Let's bring this into creation and into reality in our own lives. They will listen to you. So please go out and tell them.
Thank you, Rainbow. And we have an opportunity for each person. If you have anything you would like to say to wind up, we can start with Sharon if you have anything. Do you have anything? Okay. Carol?
What I would like to show you is a way to finish a prayer, or a way to finish each day. And it's the creation of a mandala with your arms. With your arms. Okay, here it goes, if you can see. You're going to create a cross within a circle, like this. The spirit is in me, you in spirit, vertical. The spirit is through me in all of my days and connections. The spirit is through me. And then the big one. The spirit, now feel that, as me. God. That's the oneness. Yeah.
Thank you. Sal?
Robert?
Okay. I am more drawn to things that you have no words for. Just this experience right now, we did an experience that affected me, but I couldn't describe it to you. Because when you put it into words, you're sort of lowering the vibration. And I think here at Sunday service, when we have joy and worship, it's like we end in this circle, singing together. Beautiful song, ends with the Om chant, And then there's this silence. And for me, this is this is all that the service has been building to, this moment of silence. And if the pastor speaks too soon to me, it's an interruption. It's not an addition. So my thought, though, I always thought, this is the high point. We're building to this point of silence where everybody can be listening to what's happening inside them from all this music and spirituality and fellowship. Excuse me. Humanship. Brother and sistership.
Human
So,
man.
what's that?
Human is man or man.
Yeah, it does.
But it's got kind afterwards.
Oh.
Human kind. We
See how
forget
much it's
that.
permanent, even if you say your prayer and you say Amen.
Don't be it.
Amen.
We can quibble a lot about language.
Right.
And Sally has
Well, I had always started with Om and finished with Om. So can we just do 3 Oms and bring it all together with love and peace to the one? Okay. Deep breath.
We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean.
and Marilyn will close for us.
So I had my 1 minute of stuff to say, and now it feels like that might be for certain ears only. So I'm going to invite anybody who wants to talk with me at lunchtime about the details of how to move forward towards balance to join me at lunch and bring some of this beautiful energy of balance that we've just created with us. I had meditation this morning where I was visited by Susan B. Anthony, and that was pretty astounding, and she has some good information for us. So I'm really happy to have been involved with this, and I think one of the big takeaways is that 1 hour might not be enough.
Thank you all so much, and remember to take with you that we are all like a drop of rain flowing to the ocean.